Good evening, everybody. My name is KevinJJohnston. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, which is every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And due to popular request, tonight we're going to be talking about the truth in Canada about wage garnishments and frozen bank accounts that many of us believe mistakenly happens because the CRA has access to our banks, which you're going to find out tonight, really what the truth is on that. And I want to say thank you to all my American friends for being here, and thank you to all my Canadian friends for being here. We're going to cover for the next hour what the reality is of wage garnishment in Canada, what your rights are, what the law actually is on protecting yourself from government overreach, specifically in this case, the Canada Revenue Agency, which in Canada, it would be our IRS and the equivalent of the Australian ATO, but not as much power. In fact, nowhere near as much power as either the ATO or the IRS. We are going to talk about that. But first thing is first, everybody. Look what I found today, downtown Panama City. Yeah. The namesake of the former hockey player, Tim Horton. You all know that Tim Hortons Donuts in Canada was once bought by Wendy's and is now bought by some Indian guy, Singh, whatever his name is. So Tim Hortons has a location downtown Panama City. Have a look. There's the photograph right there of me taking a picture. I had no idea it was there. I was in a meeting today with a great number of people. I had a really good time today. Panamanians are very serious about doing business, which I love. And as we decided to just take a quick walk back, we bumped into Tim Hortons. You can see the twisty tower there in the background. That's called the F&F Tower. If you look in the background, you can tell by the reflection in the glass that I am not in Toronto. I'm in Panama City. Now, there's only one Tim Hortons here, and I'll share this information with you. This cup of coffee here in Panama at Tim Hortons is every bit as terrible as it is in Canada. I don't know what Tim Hortons did to their coffee formula about 8 years ago, but it sucks, and it sucks here too. Now, something else to keep in mind when you're down here in Panama is there are a lot of local business folks down here, men and women that run their own local coffee shops, their own cake bakeries, cookie bakeries, whatever it might be. You can get a cup of coffee at one of these places for 50 cents, which is delicious compared to Tim Hortons, which sucks. And you can get donuts this big for 80 cents. Or at Tim Hortons down here in Panama, you can get two little apple fritters like this and a really crappy cup of coffee for $8.40. Right. So I just want to point out that when you're dealing with this one Canadian coffee chain, one location down here in Panama, it's not worth it. It's cool to see that they've got Canadian decorations inside of it. They've got a pretty cool display of neon lights forming the maple leaf, but there you go. Don't buy Tim Hortons caca down here in Panama. You're going to be equally as disappointed as I was today. So I dumped half the coffee out because I just couldn't drink it anymore. And I stopped at a local coffee shop and got myself a 50-cent cup of coffee. And I am so much happier for it. All right. I wanted also, this one here, guys. I got this message in Facebook. It was a Facebook ad to do with taxes, which is, of course, what I do for a living. And here's what the ad looks like. It's from a company called Online Accounting LLP. It asks, are you 1, 2, 3 years behind on taxes? Now's the time to take action before the CRA does, the Canada Revenue Agency does. And what do we see in this advertisement? A police car. All right. They're trying to frighten you into hiring them to do your taxes, because this advertisement is telling all of you that you're going to get arrested if you don't do taxes. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this company. They ended up being in Edmonton, Alberta. And when I gave these people a call, I had a conversation with them for 34 minutes. It was a 34-minute conversation. And I grilled this guy. I lied to him, said, yeah, my mother's 83 years old. She saw your ad She flipped out. She's been staring out the window for the last 3 days, waiting for the police to come and get her. She hasn't done her taxes. And then I start asking him a ton of questions about their capacity to do taxes. Questions like, will you cooperate with an auditor? Well, yes, we will. You have to. It's the government, he says to me. I want you to go and hear this thing for yourself. So if you're looking right there, this is my Rumble page, everybody. You can see it's this video right here. It's the second most recent one. You can see it's 38 minutes long. Please get in there and listen to it. freedomreport.ca is how you're going to find that video. And eventually this guy just comes out and tells the truth that they do whatever the CRA says because they are afraid of the Canada Revenue Agency. So an accounting company that advertises that you will get arrested if you don't do your taxes used fear tactics to sucker people into contacting them, to hire them to do taxes, only to tell me on the phone that they themselves are afraid of the CRA. And I'm telling you all, the Canada Revenue Agency does not have any authority in Canada. If you have auditors contacting you, get a hold of me and I will get rid of the auditor. I will ban them from your home, from your office, from your business, and even phoning you again in the future, utilizing the appropriate legalese and the appropriate legal letters and the appropriate legal demands, because I am not afraid of the CRA. I know what they are. They are merely a collection agency that gets government funding to make you angry and to lie to all of you. And I'm not thrilled about that in any particular way. In fact, it aggravated me so much so that I kept this guy on the phone for as long as he would answer questions. So as you hear me speaking to him, of course, I lied about wanting to hire him. I lied about my mother being alive and being afraid of the ad. Who cares? I lied. I'm telling all of you, I'm telling you the truth that I lied to this company to get them to answer questions so that I can protect all of you from really bad people and really bad accountants. Yeah, I lied. What happens if you lie? Nothing, except you make really good content. So I want you to go ahead and play this this video for yourselves, freedomreport.ca, and have a listen to just how useless this particular accounting company really is. You know, in fact, I would encourage everybody watching this show, call accountants in Canada and ask them questions. Very important questions. Will you cooperate with an auditor if the auditor contacts you? If they say yes, you got to get rid of them because they don't work for you. They work for the CRA. Can the CRA pull your license? If they say, well, yes, they can. They're the government. Get rid of them because no, the CRA cannot do that. If you're talking with them and you ask them, can the CRA arrest you or otherwise, if they say yes, got to get rid of them. The CRA cannot do that, not in any way. So please go through that video and understand that's why I do what I do. I want to help protect you, but I need all of you to start phoning accounting companies and ask the same questions of accounting companies in Canada that I ask of accounting companies. Trap them, put them on the spot, record the calls, and send me the recordings. Because if you want to give me your authorization to go ahead and cut it as a video, then I will absolutely do so. We can take your videos where you're calling accountants and put them on my channel so that we collectively, as the general public of Canada, can start to fight back against the CRA by making sure that we absolutely crush these accounting companies that cooperate with the CRA. And as for those of you who are in the United States, you know that I can buy your corporations from you. I can take away all your corporate debt in the USA, and you'll be happy to know that I've begun now studying personal income tax law in the United States. It's not easy. It's a very convoluted. It's worse than Canada's system, the way that everything is worded. But eventually I am going to figure all of that out. Clap. If the CRA seized your bank account and took your money, you got to get a hold of me. I'm going to repair your taxes for the last 10 years and get that bank account unlocked and get your money back for you. That is exactly what I do. I will go back 10 years and I'll find every single mistake that previous accountants have made, get you back your money. Now, tonight's show, we've got 45 minutes to review what is really going on when banks seize your money. In Canada, we have laws, and laws pertain to all of us combined. It's the rule for all of society. But in Canada, we also have what's called an act, A-C-T. An act is not a law. It's a series of rules that govern a set portion of the population, specifically those who have a set job, like the Canada Revenue Agency, to which the Income Tax Act and the Excise Tax Act will govern what they can and cannot do. But the act, it's not laws. And the acts do not pertain to we the people at all. So what will happen here with the Canada Revenue Agency, and this is for all of you to understand how to navigate them and protect them. When I tell you that you don't have to talk to the CRA, I mean it. Don't talk to them on the phone, but you should absolutely reply to all of their letters, because in Canada, they will send you a letter saying, we want you to redo your taxes or whatever, and you only have 30 days to do it. Don't ignore the letter. Hire me. I'll send off the letter saying, thank you very much for your letter, and we need 120 days to get these taxes done for you. And there's nothing that they can do at that particular time because it's a legal command. Then what will happen here, let's say you don't hire me. What will happen after the first letter? If you ignore it, they'll make 3 phone calls to you. And if they don't get through to you, or you hang up, or you scream at them, or whatever it might be, then they're just going to say, we made 3 attempts, we couldn't get through. And then they send you one last letter. And if they can't get you to do your taxes or speak to them, not pay them money, but just do your taxes. There's a difference. If they can't get you to do that in Canada, then what they do is they send out a requirement to pay letter to your bank. Now, they know about your bank only if your social insurance number, the 9-digit code you get when you're born, or when your parents get you one, that is attached to your bank account. The way you protect yourself is have a corporate account where you are not the director. I'll explain that one in a future show. But they will then send out the requirement to pay letter to your bank. Now, it does not mean that they know what's in there. The bank is actually not allowed to tell them what your balances are. But when this requirement to pay letter gets sent out by the Canada Revenue Agency, the banks automatically just pay them, right? The banks are not in any way, shape, or form obligated by law to give them any money. In fact, the bank could just make a phone call saying, listen, you're suggesting that I steal somebody's money and give it to you. And you're suggesting that I do this without a court order. The banks could say, who do you think you are? The answer is no, we're not going to do that. But the banks don't do that. Do you know why? Because Canadians don't turn around and file criminal charges against bank managers, which you have the right to do. It's your money. It's been stolen from you. Canadians don't sue the banks, which you should. I've sued almost every federal bank in Canada, usually for selling my information to third-party individuals that phone me up trying to sell me stocks and bonds. I always sue the banks for about $5,000, typically between 5 and 10, and they usually will settle out of court for about $3,000. It's a free $3,000. I take it and I just sign off. Okay, no, case closed. Thank you. But you've got the right to do this, and Canadians don't do it. That's why these requirement to pay letters go out to banks, and the banks just fold up and say, okay, here's the money, because they know you're not going to do anything about it. You can, and you should, but they know that you won't. And that is why when a lot of you get onto my videos and you tell me, hey, Kevin, you don't know what you're talking about. The CRA has authority. They stole my money. They took my money out of the bank. No, they did not. They sent a letter to the bank that was not a court order, and the bank chose to give your money to them. There is a very big distinction that must be made when you are considering the banks cooperating with the Canada Revenue Agency. It is the banks that are completely and totally liable for your money being handed over to the CRA when that is exactly what happens to you. All right, Clap is saying, specifically told my bank not to take my money out of my account to give it to the CRA. Again, Clap, you got to get a court order, a real simple one. It's called a motion in the courts. You file a motion in the court, you subpoena the CRA, they're not going to show up. You tell the judge that they took it out without a court order and you want an order to put it back, and the judge will give it to you. That's all that it takes. It's just a request from the judge, because for the CRA to issue that letter, it's not a lawful command. It's just something that the Excise Tax Act says the CRA is allowed to do. But we're going to read this to you so that you understand it. In fact, I had a really good conversation with a private bank owner. I'm not going to tell you who, but I am going to say that I'm very, very grateful for the time he spent speaking to me. And he sent me off a letter stating that even private banks are subject to this. And his lawyer sent me over two things to consider about why the banks would hand your money over to the CRA. And I'm going to cover them right now. The first one is the Excise Tax Act. That is section number 317. I'm going to share that on my screen right now with you. All right, let's get this rocking here. Excise Tax Act. And okay, here we go, everybody. This is section 317 of the Excise Tax Act. And I'm just going to read it verbatim and explain it to you. Garnishment. 317, subsection 1, if the minister has knowledge or suspects that a particular person is or will be within 1 year liable to make a payment to another person who is liable to remit an amount under this part in subsections 2, 3, 6, and 11, referred to as a tax debtor, the minister may, not must, may, by notice in writing, require the particular person to pay without delay. All right, so let's cover this first paragraph here. The minister, which is just some jerk. It's not the minister. It's not the Minister of Finance in Canada. It is just some jerk who works for the Canada Revenue Agency that writes a letter and sends it off to the bank. So if you hear what it says, the minister, or in this case, the CRA loser, may, in writing, require, which is to request, not you must do, it's just a request, require the bank to pay without delay. Or anyone for that matter. It doesn't have to be a bank. It could be your bookie. It could be your job. It could be your life insurance policy. So when the CRA sends these letters out, it's the bank who receives it, and it's the bank who says, yeah, okay, I'm going to do what we're told. Let me finish here. If the monies are payable immediately, and in any other case, and when the monies become payable, the monies otherwise payable to the taxed debtor in whole or in part to the receiver general on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part. So, translation. If the CRA says you owe money, you never owe the CRA money. They say you do, and there is a difference. If the CRA says to your bank, Kevin here owes money, and if you have money in your account that you would normally let him have, give it to us because we want it and we sent you a letter. Not a court order, just a letter. But it gets more serious here. But it's not more serious for us, more serious against the banks. Let's read further on this. Idem, subsection 2. Without limiting the generalities of subsection 1, where the minister or CRA has knowledge or suspects that within 90 days, a bank, credit union, trust company, or other similar person in this section referred to as the institution will loan or advance monies to or make a payment on behalf of or make a payment in respect of a negotiable instrument issued by a tax debtor who is indebted to the institution and who has granted security in respect of the indebtedness, or a person other than the institution will loan or advance monies to or make a payment on behalf of a tax debtor who the minister knows or suspects, subsection 1, is employed by or is engaged in providing services or property to that person, or was or will be within 90 days so employed or engaged, or 2, where that person is a corporation not dealing at arm's length with that person. Here's where it gets dumb. The minister may, not must, by notice in writing, require the institution or person, as the case may be, to pay in whole or in part to the receiver general, which is the CRA, on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part, the monies that would otherwise be so loaned, advanced, or paid, and any monies so paid to the Receiver General are deemed to have been loaned, advanced, or paid, as the case may be, to the tax debtor. So it's really terrible language designed to say, hey, we, the CRA, says Kevin here, owes money. We can't prove it. We have no evidence to prove anything that we just said. But because of this IDEM, Section 2 of Section 317, we want you to give it to us. So give it to us. That's all they're saying. And they're saying it in a letter that is not backed by a judge's stamp or a court order. Now, how sick is that? By the way, if you're watching us on Kick or here on TikTok, we get everyone doing double fingers on the screen. Let's get the hearts flying. Let's get the likes going, everybody. It really does help bring this education level to everybody out there. I really do appreciate that. So the CRA sends a letter to the bank, and this act, which pertains only to the CRA and not we the people or the banks, is what the banks are using to steal your money and give to the CRA. Let's read further. Garnishment, Section 3. Despite any provision of this part, other than any enactment of Canada, other than the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, any enactment of a province or any law, if the minister has knowledge or suspects that a particular person is or will become within 1 year liable to make a payment, A, to a tax debtor, or B, a secured creditor who has the right to receive the payment that, but for a security interest in favor of the secured creditor, would be payable to the tax debtor. You know what they're saying here? Let's say you've got a court order to pay child support, and if you don't pay it, you go to jail, according to the court order. The CRA says, yeah, you know what? Don't pay the child support. Give it to us. Let them go to jail, but give it to us anyway because Section B says so. But it's not a court order. It's not a law. It's an act. The minister may, by notice in writing, require the particular person to pay without delay. May, not must, and not can, but just may, which means it's discretionary, which means he doesn't have to, but they do anyway. If the monies are paid immediately, and in any other case, as when the monies become payable, the monies otherwise payable to the tax debtor, in this case, let's say me, or the secured creditor, in whole or in part to the Receiver General on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part, and on receipt that notice by the particular person, the amount of those monies that is so required to be paid to the Receiver General shall, despite any security interest in those monies, become the property of Her Majesty, or now His Majesty of Canada, to the extent of that liability as assessed by the minister, and shall be paid to the Receiver General in priority to any such interest. So, if you've got a mortgage and you have money in the bank, the money has to go to the CRA and not your mortgage, so you lose your house and now you can't make money to pay the debt. Personally speaking, anyone who does that to you honestly deserves to be hanged by the neck until dead. You can't do that because the law says you can't. But when a person who works for the CRA does this and takes your money from you without a court order, they are a criminal. It doesn't matter that lawyers might say, but it's an act and they've got the right to do it. No, they actually don't. This here says they may ask for it, but nobody is obligated to give it to them. And who in the hell believes that they have the power to even demand this of anyone? Here's me hoping and praying that everybody who works for the CRA gets what's coming to them. I really do hope and pray. I can't sit here and advocate for violence because that would be solicitation of a crime, and that is a crime unto itself. So I won't do so, but they deserve it. So for 2025, everybody, you'll be happy to know that we're going to run a series of fundraisers countrywide so that we can have a whole team. I've got 2 private investigators that work for me now, but I want a whole team of private investigators to track down the home addresses of every single person who works for the CRA so that when they pull stunts like this, we can just go and take their houses with contractor liens. There you go. And Tim, you're correct. Acts do not apply to people. It applies to corporations and set groups of people who work for those corporations. That's 100% correct what you just said. Getting a little bit further into the Excise Tax Act, effect of receipt, more legalese nonsense. Section 5. If the minister has, under this section, required a person to pay the receiver general on account of the liability under this part of a tax debtor, monies otherwise payable by the person to the tax debtor as interest, rent, remuneration, a dividend, an annuity, or other